Philip David Charles Phil Collins, LVO, is an English musician, singer-songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, actor and writer, best known both as drummer and vocalist for rock group Genesis and as a solo artist. He sang the lead vocals on dozens of hit albums and singles in the UK and the US between 1976 and 2010, either as a solo artist or with Genesis. His solo singles, sometimes dealing with lost love and often featuring his distinctive gated reverb drum sound, ranged from the atmospheric In the Air Tonight, dance rock of Sussudio, piano-driven power ballad Against All Odds, to the political and religious connotations of Another Day in Paradise. AllMusic has described Collins as one of the most successful pop and adult contemporary singers of the 80s and beyond. Collins joined Genesis in 1970 as the group's drummer and became their vocalist in 1975 following the departure of their original frontman Peter Gabriel. His solo career, which was launched in 1981 and was heavily influenced by his personal life and soul music, brought both himself and Genesis greater commercial success. Collins's total worldwide sales as a solo artist are 150 million. Collins has won numerous music awards throughout his career, including 7 Grammy Awards, 6 Brit Awards, a Euro-winning Best British Male 3 times, 3 American Music Awards, an Academy Award, 2 Golden Globe Awards and a Disney Legend Award in 2002 for his solo work. He received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 1999, was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame in 2003, and into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a member of Genesis in 2010. Collins was listed at number 22 in Rolling Stone magazine's 100 Greatest Drummers of All Time, number 10 in a countdown by Jive and number 9 by Music Radar. Collins is one of only 3 recording artists who have sold over 100 million albums worldwide, both as solo artists and as principal members of a band. During his most successful period as a solo artist between 1981 and 1990, Collins had 3 UK number 1 singles and 7 number 1 singles on the Billboard Hot 100 in the United States, as well as a US number 1 with Genesis in 1986. When his work with Genesis, his work with other artists, as well as his solo career is totaled, Collins had more top 40 hits on the Billboard Hot 100 chart during the 1980s than any other artist. In 2008, Collins was ranked the 22nd most successful artist on the Billboard Hot 100 Top All-Time Artists. Although one of the world's best-selling recording artists and a highly respected drummer, Collins has garnered significant criticism over the years, especially from music journalists. He announced his retirement in 2011 to focus on his family life, but indicated in 2013 that he was still writing songs and considering a return to music. In 2014, Collins revealed that he was collaborating on new material with Adele but did not confirm whether this was for a future solo release of his own. Early life: Collins was born and raised in Hounslow, London, the son of Winifred M. June, a theatrical agent, and Greville Philip Austin Collins, an insurance agent. He was given a toy drum kit for Christmas when he was 5. Later, his uncle made him a makeshift one that he used regularly. As Collins grew older, these were followed by more complete sets bought by his parents. He practiced by playing alongside the television and radio, and never learned to read and write conventional musical notation. Instead, he uses a system he devised himself. According to Barbara Speake, founder of the eponymous stage school, Collins always had a rare ear for music. Phil was always special. Aged 5, he entered a Butlins talent contest singing Davy Crockett, but he stopped the orchestra halfway through to tell them they were in the wrong key. Early career: his professional training began at the age of 14, when he entered the Barbara Speake Stage School, a fee-paying but non-selective independent school in London run by his mother. He began a career as a child actor and model, and won his first major role as the Artful Dodger in the London production of Oliver. He was an extra in the Beatles' A Hard Day's Night, one of hundreds of screaming teenagers during the TV concert sequence and seen fleetingly in a close-up. He was also in Chutty Chutty Bang Bang as one of the children who storms the castle at the end of the film, but it was cut. He also auditioned for the role of Romeo in Romeo and Juliet, a role won by fellow Artful Dodger actor Leonard Whiting. Collins was among the last 3 finalists for the role of IQ on the American children's television show The Bugaloos. Despite the beginnings of an acting career, Collins continued to gravitate towards music. While attending Chiswick Community School, he formed a band called The Real Thing and later joined the Freehold. With the latter group, he wrote his first song titled Lying Crying Dying. Collins's first record deal came as drummer for Hickory, who changed their name to Flaming Youth by the time of their solo album, Arc 2. A concept album inspired by the recent media attention surrounding the moon landing, Arc 2 Smith, failed to make much commercial success despite positive critical reviews. Melody Maker featured the album as Pop Album of the Month, describing it as adult music beautifully played with nice tight harmonies. The album's main single, From Now On, failed on the radio. After a year of touring, band tensions and a lack of commercial success dissolved the group. In 1970, the 19-year-old Collins played percussion on the George Harrison song The Art of Dying. Harrison credited him in the liner notes to the remastered CD version of the album released in 2000. Genesis era. In 1970, Collins answered a Melody Maker classified ad for a drummer sensitive to acoustic music, and 12-string acoustic guitarist. Genesis placed the ad after having already lost 3 drummers over 2 albums. The audition occurred at the home of Peter Gabriel's parents. Prospective candidates performed tracks from the group's second album, Trespass. Collins arrived early, listened to the other auditions while swimming in Gabriel's parents' pool, and memorized the pieces before his turn. Collins won the audition. Nursery Crime was released a year later. Although his role remained primarily that of drummer and backing vocalist for the next 5 years, he twice sang lead vocals, once on For Absent Friends, and once on More Fool Me. In 1974, while Genesis were recording the concept album The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, Brian Eno needed a drummer for his album Taking Tiger Mountain. Collins was sent to fill the gap, and played drums in lieu of payment for Eno's work with the band. Collins later contributed drums to the Brian Eno 1975 and 1977 art rock releases Another Green World and Before and After Science. In 1975, following the final tour supporting the album The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, Gabriel left the group to pursue a solo career. Collins became lead vocalist after a lengthy but ultimately fruitless search for Gabriel's replacement. To facilitate Collins's new role as the group's lead singer-frontman, Genesis recruited former Yes and King Crimson drummer Bill Bruford to play drums during live shows, although Collins continued to play drums during longer instrumental sections. Bruford's drumming can be heard on the track The Cinema Show on the live album Seconds Out. Bruford was soon replaced by ex-Frank Zappa band member Chester Thompson, who became a mainstay of the band's live lineup through the following decades. Collins, however, continued to be the band's exclusive drummer on all of the group's studio recordings. The first album with Collins as lead vocalist, 1976's A Trick of the Tail, reached the American Top 40, and peaked high as number 3 on the UK charts. Said Rolling Stone, Genesis has managed to turn the possible catastrophe of Gabriel's departure into their first broad-based American success. Following the recording of Genesis's next album Wind and Wuthering, guitarist Steve Hackett left the group to pursue his own solo career. The group decided to continue as a trio for recording with Tony Banks on keyboards and Mike Rutherford playing guitar and bass in the studio, although the lineup was regularly augmented by Chester Thompson and American guitarist Daryl Stuermer for concert tours. Collins simultaneously performed in a jazz fusion group called Brand X. The band recorded their first album, Unorthodox Behavior, with Collins as drummer, but because Genesis was Collins's priority, there were several Brand X tours and albums without him. Collins credits Brand X as his first use of a drum machine as well as his first use of a home 8-track tape machine. Collins also performed on Steve Hackett's first solo album, Voyage of the Acolyte, on which he sang lead vocals and played drums. As the decade closed, Genesis began a shift from their progressive rock roots and toward more accessible, radio-friendly pop rock music. The album, And Then There Were Three, featured their first UK Top 10 and US Top 40 single, Follow You Follow Me. In the 1980s, while Collins developed as a songwriter and established a parallel career as a solo artist, Genesis recorded a series of highly successful albums including Duke, Abacab, Genesis and Invisible Touch. The latter album's title track reached number 1 on the American Billboard Singles Chart, the only Genesis song to do so. The group received a nomination for the MTV Video Music Award for Video of the Year in 1987 for the single Land of Confusion, but lost out to Peter Gabriel's solo hit, Sledgehammer. Reviews were generally positive, with Rolling Stone's J.D. Considine stating, "Every tune is carefully pruned so that each flourish delivers not an instrumental epiphany but a solid hook." Collins left Genesis in 1996 to focus on his solo career. The last studio album with him as the lead singer was 1991's We Can't Dance. It was supported by an extensive tour across the world in 1992. He and Gabriel reunited with other Genesis members in 1999 to re-record the Carpet Crawlers for Genesis's Turn It On Again, The Hits. When in the mid-2000s discussions of a possible Genesis reunion arose, Collins stated that he would prefer to return as the drummer, with Gabriel handling the vocals. Eventually, Turn It On Again, the tour was announced for 2007, with the Collins-Banks lineup. Solo career, 1981–1983, early solo recordings. The dominant theme running through Collins's early solo recordings was the acrimonious breakdown of his first marriage and then recent divorce. 2 songs he wrote on the Genesis album Duke, Please Don't Ask, and the top 20 hit Misunderstanding, dealt with failed relationships. A third track that appeared on Duke, Behind the Lines, can also be found on Phil's debut solo album, Face Value. 1 year earlier, he had played drums and contributed backing vocals on John Martyn's Grace and Danger, an album whose main theme is also marriage breakup. With the recording of his first solo album, Face Value, Collins attributed his divorce as his main influence, as can be inferred from songs such as If Leaving Me Is Easy. Collins made his live debut as a solo performer appearing at the invitation of record producer Martin Lewis at the Amnesty International benefit show, The Secret Policeman's Other Ball at the Theatre Royal in London in September 1981, performing 2 songs from Face Value including In the Air Tonight, and The Roof is Leaking accompanying himself on piano. Face Value became a surprise international success, topping the charts in at least 7 countries and hitting the top 10 of the Billboard 200, eventually going quintuple platinum in the US. Hits from the album included In the Air Tonight, I Missed Again, and If Leaving Me Is Easy. In 1982, he produced ABBA member Frida's solo album Something's Going On, which helped to spawn the title track, I Know There's Something Going On, which became a hit. Much like Face Value, many of the songs from Collins's 1982 follow-up album, Hello, I Must Be Going, came from Collins's marital problems with his first wife, such as I Don't Care Anymore, and Do You Know, Do You Care? Collins's early albums had a dark presence, usually heavy on the drums. Regarding Face Value, he says, I had a wife, 2 children, 2 dogs, and the next day I didn't have anything. So a lot of these songs were written because I was going through these emotional changes. There were occasional poppier influences or Euro Face Value's Behind the Lines, for example, was a jazzy remake of a Genesis song he co-wrote. Hello, I Must Be Going gave him a UK #1 for his cover of the Supremes' You Can't Hurry Love. The album went triple platinum in the United States. The Supremes cover was his first top 10 US hit. The album also reached #2 on the UK album chart, spending well over a year there. 2 years before, Collins had played drums on Peter Gabriel's third self-titled record, the first record to feature the gated reverb sound, which was used on the song Intruder. Gabriel reportedly didn't want any metal on the record, and asked Collins to leave his cymbals at home, to concentrate on the sound of his kit more heavily than usual. Studio engineer Hugh Padgham augmented the drum sound by using a microphone normally intended for studio communication rather than recording and feeding it through a signal processor called a noise gate. This allowed the reverberation added to the drums to be suddenly cut off before it naturally decayed. The result was the arresting gated reverb, which became Collins's signature sound. This was the same big drum sound used on such songs as In the Air Tonight, Mama by Genesis, and Annie Frieda Lyngstad's I Know There's Something Going On. 1984 Euro 1991, mid-career and a Euro-massive worldwide success, Collins changed his musical style with the release of the ballad, Against All Odds, which was the main theme song for the movie of the same name in 1984. The more pop-friendly and radio-accessible single became Collins's first solo single to reach number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and gave him his first Grammy Award for Best Pop Vocal Performance, Male. Later that year, Collins contributed to production on Earth, Wind and Fire singer Philip Bailey's third album, Chinese War, collaborating with Bailey on the hit duet, Easy Lover. In November 1984, Collins contributed vocals and drums to Band Aid's Do They Know It's Christmas? A song written by Bob Geldof and Midge Ure to raise funds for victims of the 1983 Euro 85 famine in Ethiopia, which became the Christmas number 1 in the UK and the best-selling single in UK singles chart history, selling 1 million copies in the first week alone. Collins released his most successful album, The Diamond Certified No Jacket Required, which reached number 1 in US in the summer of 1985. It contained the US number 1 hits One More Night, and Sussudio as well as the top 10 hits Don't Lose My Number, and Take Me Home. It also contains the less-known yet equally robust, Who Said I Would, and Only You Know and I Know. The album featured Sting, Helen Terry and ex-bandmate Peter Gabriel as backing vocalists. He also recorded the successful song Separate Lives, a duet with Marilyn Martin, and a US number 1, for the movie White Nights. Collins had 3 US number 1 songs in 1985, the most by any artist that year. No Jacket Required went on to win 3 Grammy Awards including Album of the Year. No Jacket Required received criticism that the album was too safe, despite its upbeat reviews and commercial success. A positive review by David Fricke of Rolling Stone ended, after years on the art rock fringe, Collins has established himself firmly in the middle of the road. Perhaps he should consider testing himself and his new fans' expectations next time around. Sussudio also drew criticism for sounding too similar to Prince's 1999, a charge that Collins did not deny. Nevertheless, the album went straight to number 1 in the US and UK. In 1985, Collins was invited by Bob Geldof to perform at the Live Aid charity event, which was a continuation of the fundraising effort for Ethiopia started by Band Aid. Collins had the distinction of being the only performer to appear at both the UK concert at Wembley Stadium and the US concert at JFK Stadium in Philadelphia. He performed his solo songs Against All Odds, and In the Air Tonight. He accomplished this by performing early in the day at Wembley as both a solo artist and alongside Sting, then transferring to a Concorde flight to the US enabling him to perform his solo material, and drum for Led Zeppelin and Eric Clapton in Philadelphia. While being a guest on major artists' hit recordings, Collins continued to enjoy solo success even while on tour with Genesis. Besides from his number 1 duet with Marilyn Martin in 1985. Collins would score 2 more hits from movies with the singles, Two Hearts, and Groovy Kind of Love, the latter 2 from the soundtrack of his feature film, Buster. In 1986, Collins won the first 2 of his 6 Brit Awards for Best British Male and Best British Album for No Jacket Required. In 1989, Collins produced another successful album. But Seriously, featuring the anti-homelessness anthem Another Day in Paradise, with David Crosby on backing vocals. Another Day in Paradise went to number 1 on the Billboard charts at the end of 1989, won Collins' Best British Single at the Brit Awards in 1990, and the Grammy Award for Record of the Year in 1991. It was also one of the most successful singles of all time in Germany. In the process, it became the last number 1 US pop hit of the 1980s. The album, But Seriously, became the first number 1 US album of the 1990s and the best-selling album of 1990 in the UK. Other songs included Something Happened on the Way to Heaven, Do You Remember? And I Wish It Would Rain Down. Songs about apartheid and homelessness demonstrated Collins's turn to politically driven material. This theme recurred on his later albums. A live album, Serious Hits, Live, followed, which reached top 10 around the world. In September 1990, Collins performed Sussudio at the 1990 MTV Video Music Awards in Los Angeles. Collins also played drums on the 1989 Tears for Fears hit Woman in Chains. 1992 2008, later solo work and Genesis reunion. After a hiatus of 5 years, Genesis reconvened for the 1991 album release We Can't Dance, which was to be Collins's last studio album with the group. The album features the hit singles Jesus He Knows Me, I Can't Dance, No Son of Mine, and Hold on My Heart. In 1992 Collins toured with Genesis in the We Can't Dance tour where they played to stadiums around the world, including Giant Stadium in New Jersey. At the 1993 American Music Awards on January 25, Genesis won the award for Favorite Pop Rock Band, Duo, or Group. Collins's record sales began to drop with the 1993 release of Both Sides, a largely experimental album that, according to Collins, included songs that were becoming so personal, so private, I didn't want anyone else's input. Featuring a less polished sound and fewer up-tempo songs than his previous albums, Both Sides was a significant departure. Collins used no backing musicians, performed all the vocal and instrumental parts at his home studio, and used rough vocal takes for the final product. The album was not well received by radio. Its two biggest hits were Both Sides of the Story, and Every Day. Collins worked on the album completely independently of his record company, and took them by surprise when he delivered them a completed album that they were unaware he was making. Collins officially parted ways with Genesis in 1996 to focus on his solo career. Collins attempted a return to pop music with Dance Into the Light, which Entertainment Weekly reviewed by saying that even Phil Collins must know that we all grew weary of Phil Collins. It included minor hits such as the title track and the Beatles-inspired It's in Your Eyes. Although the album went gold in the US, it sold considerably less than his previous albums. Despite this, the subsequent tour regularly sold out arenas. In 1996, Collins formed the Phil Collins Big Band. With Collins as drummer, the band performed jazz renditions of various Collins and Genesis hits. The Phil Collins Big Band did a world tour in 1998 that included a performance at the Montreux Jazz Festival. In 1999, the group released the CD Hot Night in Paris including big band versions of Invisible Touch, Sussudio, and the more obscure The Los Endos Suite from A Trick of the Tail. On September 15, 1997, Collins appeared at the Music for Montserrat concert at the Royal Albert Hall, London, performing alongside artists such as Sting, Mark Knopfler, Elton John, Eric Clapton and Paul McCartney. A compilation album, Hits, was released in 1998 and sold very well, returning Collins to multi-platinum status in America. The album's sole new track, a cover of the Cyndi Lauper hit True Colors, received considerable play on U.S. adult contemporary stations while peaking at number 2. Some of Collins's earlier hits and other successes were not included in this compilation. Collins's next single, You'll Be in My Heart, from the Disney animated movie Tarzan, spent 19 weeks at number 1 on Billboard's adult contemporary chart, the longest time ever up to that point. The song won Collins an Academy Award and a Golden Globe Award both for Best Original Song. It was his third nomination in the Songwriters category, after being nominated in 1985 and 1989. Collins was awarded a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, on June 16, 1999. In 2002, Collins released Testify. Metacritic's roundup of album reviews found this record to be the worst-reviewed album at the time of its release, though it has since been surpassed by 3 more recent releases. The album's Can't Stop Loving You was yet another number 1 adult contemporary smash hit for Collins. Testify sold 140,000 copies in the United States by year's end, although a successful worldwide tour followed. That same year, Collins accepted an invitation to drum for the house band at a concert celebrating Queen Elizabeth II's Golden Jubilee. In 2003, he announced his last solo tour, the first final farewell tour, a tongue-in-cheek reference to the multiple farewell tours of other popular artists. In 2006, he worked with Disney on a Broadway production of Tarzan. After much speculation regarding a Genesis reunion, Collins reunited with Banks and Rutherford and announced Turn It On Again, the tour on November 7, 2006, nearly 40 years after the band first formed. The tour took place during summer 2007, and played 12 countries across Europe, followed by a second leg in North America. During the tour, Genesis performed at the Live Earth concert at Wembley Stadium, London. Following the band's performance, presenter Jonathan Ross had to apologize to viewers watching the televised version as Collins had used a swear word while singing Invisible Touch. In 2007, the band were honorees at the second annual VH1 Rock Honors, with the band performing Turn It On Again, No Son of Mine, and Los Endos at the ceremony in Las Vegas. 2009 A Euro present, Going Back, Retirement, Alamo Collection and other activities. In October 2009, it was reported that Collins was to record a Motown covers album. He told a German newspaper, "I want the songs to sound exactly like the originals, and that the album would feature up to 30 songs." In January 2010, Chester Thompson said that the album had been completed and would be released sometime soon. He also revealed that Collins managed to play the drums on the album despite the adverse effects of his recent spinal operation. It was the first solo album Collins had recorded which consisted entirely of songs written by other people. Going Back was released on September 13, 2010, entering the UK charts at number 4, rising to number 1 the following week. In early summer 2010, Collins played 6 concerts entirely dedicated to the music from Going Back. These included a special program, Phil Collins, One Night Only, which was broadcast on ITV1 on September 18, 2010. Collins also promoted Going Back with his first and only appearance on the BBC's Foremost Music series Later. With Jools Holland, broadcast on September 17, 2010. In March 2010, Collins was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a member of Genesis at a ceremony in New York. As of January 2011, Collins has spent 1,730 weeks in German music charts, Euro 766 weeks of them with Genesis albums and singles, and 964 weeks with solo releases. On March 4, 2011, citing health problems and other concerns, Collins announced that he was taking time off from his career, prompting widespread reports of his retirement. Days later, on March 7, his UK representative told the press, he is not, has no intention of, retiring. However, later that day, Collins posted a message to his fans on his own website, confirming his intention to retire to focus on his family life. In July 2012, Collins' Greatest Hits collection Hits re-entered the US charts, reaching number 6 on the Billboard 200. In November 2013, Collins told German media that he was considering a return to music and speculated that this could mean further live shows with Genesis, stating, "Everything is possible. We could tour in Australia and South America. We haven't been there yet." Speaking to reporters in Miami, Florida, in December 2013 at an event promoting his charity work, Collins indicated that he is writing music once again and might possibly tour again, though he did not relish being subjected to the harsh critical reception his music has received over the years if he did decide to return to the studio and stage. In the early 2010s, Collins became involved with researching the Battle of the Alamo in Texas, United States, including authoring a book. On January 24, 2014, Collins announced in an interview with Inside South Florida that he is writing new compositions with English musician Adele. He said that "I've just started to work with Adele." Collins told the publication that he had no idea who Adele was when he first learned she wanted to collaborate with him. He said, "I wasn't actually too aware of her. I live in a cave." Collins then agreed to join her in the studio after hearing her voice. Collins said that, "She achieved an incredible amount. I really love her voice. I love some of this stuff she's done too." It is still unknown whether the collaboration is for an Adele or a Collins release. In May 2014, Collins gave a live performance of In the Air Tonight, and Land of Confusion with young student musicians at the Miami Country Day School in Miami, Florida. Collins was asked to perform there by his sons, who are students at the school. Drums and other equipment. Collins uses Gretsch drums and Sabian cymbals. Drums: 20 inches bass drum, 18-floor tom, 16-floor tom, 15-mounted tom, 12-tom, 10-tom, 8-tom, 14x4 snare, 14 Phil Collins Special. Cymbals: HH medium crash 20 inches Euro HH extra thin crash 17 Euro hi-hats 15 Euro HH China 20 Euro HH medium thin crash 16 HH China 22 Euro HH raw bell dry ride 21. Until 1986, Collins played Paiste and Zildjian cymbals. Other drums he's used over the years are Premier, Noble and Cooley, Pearl, Phipps and Simmons electronic drums. He uses the Ludwig Speed King pedal, Gibraltar hardware, ProMark sticks and Remo drumheads. Collins plays his kit left-handed and also has his ProMark Phil Collins signature drum stick. Other instruments which have become synonymous with Collins's sound include the Roland Creek 78, Roland Trail 808, Roland Trail 909, Linn LM1 and Linn drum machines, Sequential Circuits Prophet 5 synthesizer, the Yamaha Camp 70 electric grand piano, the Yamaha DX7 synthesizer, Oberheim DMX drum machine, Korg Devastation, Korg Karma, Korg Trinity, Korg 01 per watt, Korg M1R and Korg Triton synthesizers, Roland JD800, Roland JV1080 and Roland D50 synthesizers, EMU Emulator 2 and EMU Emulator 3 sample workstations and the Roland BP330. Vocoder. Career as record producer. For his solo career and his career with Genesis, Collins produced or co-produced virtually all of his singles and albums, the notable exceptions being Against All Odds, and his cover of True Colors. Collins also maintained a career as a producer for other artists throughout the 1980s, usually working on outside projects at the rate of one artist per year. His first outside work as a producer was the 1981 album Glorious Fool for John Martin. He followed that up by producing Annie Frieda Lyngstad's 1982 album Something's Going On, which contained the international hit I Know There's Something Going On. In 1983, Collins producing 2 tracks for Adam Ant, both of which hit the UK charts, Puss in Boots, and Strip. In 1984, he produced Philip Bailey's album Chinese Wall, from which the hit Bailey-Collins duet Easy Lover was drawn. This album also contained the Bailey hit Walking on the Chinese Wall. In 1985, Collins produced several tracks on the Eric Clapton album Behind the Sun. The following year, he produced 1 track for Howard Jones, the international hit No One Is to Blame, for which he also played drums. Returning to work with Clapton, Collins was one of the producers on his 1987 album August. The UK Top 20 single Behind the Mask was drawn from this album, and this particular track credited production to Phil Collins in association with Tom Dowd. In 1988, Collins and Lamont Dozier collaborated as writers and producers of the Four Tops Top 10 UK hit Loco in Acapulco, which was taken from the soundtrack of the film Buster, in which Collins starred. Finally, in 1989, Collins was one of the producers of the Stephen Bishop album Bowling in Paris, which included the US adult contemporary hit Walking on Air, produced by Collins and Padgham. Films, theatre and television. The majority of Collins's film work has been through music. 4 of his 7 American #1 songs came from film soundtracks, and his work on Disney's Tarzan earned him an Oscar. Collins even sang German, Italian, Spanish and French versions of the Tarzan soundtrack for the respective film versions. Collins's acting career has been brief. As a child, he appeared in 3 films, although 2 of the films were for brief moments as an extra. Besides the aforementioned A Hard Day's Night, Collins's first lead role was in a children's film Calamity the Cow. Collins wrote and performed the title song to Against All Odds in 1984. The song became the first of his 7 American #1 songs and received an Academy Award nomination for Best Song. Collins was not invited to perform the song at that year's presentation, although he was in the audience as the song's composer. Collins had arranged his U.S. tour to accommodate the possibility of appearing on the telecast in the event his song was nominated for an Oscar. It is believed that the producers of that year's Academy Awards show were not aware of his prominence as a musical performer. A note to Collins's label from telecast co-producer Larry Gelbart explaining the lack of invitation stated, "Thank you for your note regarding Phil Cooper, sick. I'm afraid the spots have already been filled." Collins instead watched Anne Reinking perform his song. For a long time afterwards, he would introduce his performance of Against All Odds at his concerts by saying, "Miss Anne Reinking's not here tonight, so I guess I'll have to sing my own song." As a vocalist, Collins sang Stephen Bishop's composition Separate Lives for the film White Nights as a duet with Marilyn Martin. The single of the recording became another #1 hit for Collins. The song itself was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Song. Bishop's song had parallels to some of the songs on Collins's first two albums. Writer Stephen Bishop noted that he was inspired by a failed relationship and called Separate Lives a song about anger. When the song was being nominated for an Academy Award, in interviews about the original snub by the Academy for Against All Odds, Collins would jokingly say "the hell with him, I'm going up to," referring to if Bishop's song were to win the award. Collins's first film role since embarking on his career as a musician came in 1988 with the romantic comedy drama Buster. He starred as Buster Edwards, a criminal convicted for his role in the Great Train Robbery, which took place in England in August 1963. Reviews for the film were mixed and controversy ensued over its subject matter, with Prince Charles and Princess Diana deciding to withdraw from attending the film's premiere after it was accused of glorifying crime. However, Collins's performance opposite Julie Walters received good reviews and he contributed 4 songs to the film's soundtrack. His slow ballad rendition of A Groovy Kind of Love, originally a 1966 single by the Mindbenders, became Collins's only single to reach #1 in both the UK and the USA. A film also spawned the hit single Two Hearts, which he wrote in collaboration with legendary Motown songwriter Lamont Dozier. The two artists would go on to win a Golden Globe for Best Original Song and receive an Oscar nomination in the same category, the second such honor for Collins. Big Noise, written by Phil Collins and Lamont Dozier, which included Collins on vocals. The final song, Loco in Acapulco, was another collaboration between him and Dozier, with the vocals performed by the legendary Motown group The Four Tops. Film critic Roger Ebert said the role of Buster was played with surprising effectiveness by Collins, although the film's soundtrack proved more successful than the film did. Collins had cameo appearances in Steven Spielberg's Hook and the AIDS docudrama And the Band Played On. He starred in 1993's Frauds, which competed for the Palme d'Or at the 1993 Cannes Film Festival. He supplied voices to 2 animated features, Amblin's Balto and Disney's The Jungle Book 2. A long-discussed but never completed project was a film titled The Three Bears. Originally meant to star him alongside Danny DeVito and Bob Hoskins, he often mentioned the film, though an appropriate script never materialized. Collins performed the soundtrack to the animated film Tarzan for the Walt Disney Company. Collins won an Academy Award for You'll Be in My Heart, which he performed at that year's telecast as well as during a Disney-themed Super Bowl halftime show. The song, which he also recorded in Spanish among other languages, became his only appearance on Billboard's Hot Latin Tracks. Disney hired him, along with Tina Turner, in 2003 for the soundtrack to another animated feature film, Brother Bear, and had some airplay with the song Look Through My Eyes. Collins's music is featured in the satirical black comedy film American Psycho, with psychotic-led character Patrick Bateman portrayed as an obsessive fan who reads deep meaning into his work, especially with Genesis, while describing his solo music as more commercial and therefore more satisfying, in a narrower way. Bateman delivers a monologue in praise of Collins and Genesis during a sequence in which he engages the services of 2 prostitutes while playing in Too Deep, and Sussudio. Bateman also makes similar paeans to other 1980s pop stars Huey Lewis in The News and Whitney Houston in the film. On television, he twice hosted the Billboard Music Awards. He also appeared in an episode of the series Miami Vice, entitled Phil the Shill, in which he plays a cheating con man. He also guest-starred in several sketches with the Two Ronnies. Most recently, he had a cameo appearance on the television series Whoopi. In 2001, Collins was sought out by the satirist Chris Morris, and appeared in the Brass Eye Pedophile special endorsing a spoof charity called Nonsense. At one point Collins, dressed in a matching baseball cap and t-shirt emblazoned with the name of this fictitious charity, stares into the camera and declares, "I'm talking nonsense." In 2003, Collins's work on Brother Bear was expanded as Disney used the song Welcome as the theme for Walt Disney's Parade of Dreams, the main parade celebrating the 50th anniversary of Disneyland. In 2005 Disney's Tarzan was adapted for Broadway. Collins contributed 11 new songs and instrumental pieces, and was deeply involved in the production. Unlike the film, where Collins sang all the material, the characters sang on stage. Collins made an appearance as himself in the 2006 PSP and PS2 video game Grand Theft Auto: Vice City Stories. Set in 1984, he appears in 3 missions in which the main character, Victor, must save him from a gang that is trying to kill him, the final mission occurring during his concert, where the player must defend the scaffolding against saboteurs while Phil is simultaneously performing In the Air Tonight. After this, the player is given the opportunity to watch this performance of In the Air Tonight for only $6,000 in the game. In the Air Tonight was also featured in the soundtrack of Grand Theft Auto: Vice City Stories, and it was also featured in the film Aqua Teen Hunger Force: movie filmed for theaters, the 2009 movie The Hangover, and the 2007 Gorilla commercial for Cadbury's Dairy Milk Chocolate. The advertisement also helped the song re-enter the New Zealander IANZ singles chart at number 3 in July 2008, the following week reaching number 1, beating its original 1981 number 6 peak. In the Air Tonight was also sampled in the song I Can Feel It on Sean Kingston's self-titled debut album. Phil Collins had several ties to the hit show Miami Vice, with 5 songs used in the course of the series, as well as having starred in the episode Phil the Shill. Phil Collins was portrayed in the hit cartoon South Park in the episode Timmy 2000, holding his Oscar throughout, referring to his 1999 win for You'll Be in My Heart, which defeated Blame Canada from South Park, Bigger, Longer and Uncut. He was seen again in the episode Cartman's Silly Hate Crime. Phil Collins appears briefly in the Finnish animated sitcom Pasila in the episode Phil Collins' Hangover. The music of this episode is a pastiche of Phil Collins's Another Day in Paradise. Phil Collins was mentioned in the Psych episode Disco Didn't Die. It Was Murdered. As resembling Sean Spencer's father Henry Spencer, portrayed by actor Corbin Bernsen. Criticism: Collins has attracted a great deal of negative press. According to a BBC biography of Collins in 2000, critics sneer at him, and bad publicity also caused problems, which damaged his public profile. In 2009, journalist Mark Lawson said, Collins has had to endure 2 very different profiles in the media. Originally Pop's Mr. Nice Guy, patron saint of ordinary blokes, he has more recently been accused of blandness, tax exile and ending a marriage by sending a fax. Collins has confirmed that some of the divorce-related correspondence between himself and second wife, Jill Tavelman, was by fax. Since the story published in The Sun, the British media has often stated Collins divorced his wife by fax, something he has said is untrue. Collins has also been the victim of scathing remarks in regard to his alleged political leanings. Caroline Sullivan, a music critic of The Guardian, referred to the negative publicity around Collins in her article I Wish I'd Never Heard of Phil Collins in 2007, writing that it was difficult for her to hear Collins's work without being riven by distaste for the man himself. Referring to the ironic usage of his songs in the film American Psycho, Tom Service, also a critic for The Guardian, described Collins's music as perfectly vacuous and unstomachable, and stated that lead character Patrick Bateman's paeans to his songs reveal a precise if ironic correlative between the murderous vacuity of the music and the breathtaking cynicism of Bateman's killings to which they are the soundtrack. Service described his 1985 album No Jacket Required as unlistenable to today, arguing that there's no colder or more superficial sound in popular music than the hit single Sussudio. Collins was subjected to acerbic comments in the press following reports about his retirement in 2011. He was dubbed the most hated man in rock by the UK's Daily Telegraph. Rolling Stone journalist John Diosso acknowledged the incredible, overwhelming popularity Collins and Genesis achieved, but said that he had become a negative figure in the music world, and that the reaction to his legacy was strongly unfavourable. Tim Chester of the New Musical Express alluded to the widespread disdain for Collins in an article titled, "Is It Time We All Stopped Hating Phil Collins?" Chester described Collins as the go-to guy for ironic appreciation and guilty pleasures, and stated he was responsible for some moments of true genius. However, Chester also argued that Genesis turned shit at the precise point he jumped off the drum stool to replace the departing Peter Gabriel as frontman, and said of the unrelenting derision he has suffered, a lot of it he brings on himself. Collins has acknowledged the very vocal element of Genesis fans who believe that the group sold out under his leadership. Eric Hedegaard of Rolling Stone commented, "He has been called the Antichrist, the sellout who took Peter Gabriel's Genesis, that paragon of prog rock, and turned it into a lame-o pop act and went on to make all those super cheesy hits that really did define the 1980s. However, he did express disapproval of the widespread criticism Collins has received, suggesting that he has been unfairly and inexplicably vilified. Collins concedes his status as a figure of contempt for many people and has said that he believes this is a consequence of his music being overplayed. In 2011, he was quoted, "The fact that people got so sick of me wasn't really my fault. It's hardly surprising that people grew to hate me. I'm sorry that it was all so successful. I honestly didn't mean it to happen like that." Oasis songwriter Noel Gallagher has made multiple public criticisms of Collins, including the comment, "Just because you sell lots of records, it doesn't mean to say you're any good. Look at Phil Collins." Collins said he has at times been very down about Gallagher's criticism. Singer-songwriter and political activist Billy Bragg has also criticized Collins for writing Another Day in Paradise, stating, "Phil Collins might write a song about the homeless, but if he doesn't have the action to go with it, he's just exploiting that for a subject." Responding to reports circulating about his retirement in 2011, Collins dismissed the notion that his departure from the music industry was due to negative attention, and stated small parts of conversations had been made into headlines. He said, "I have ended up sounding like a tormented weirdo who thinks he was at the Battle of the Alamo in another life, who feels very sorry for himself, and is retiring hurt because of the bad press over the years. None of this is true." In 2013, Dave Simpson of The Guardian made an impassioned defense of Collins. While acknowledging few pop figures have become as successful and yet reviled as Phil Collins, Simpson argued it's about time we recognized Collins's vast influence as one of the godfathers of popular culture. Personal life, family. Each of Collins's 3 marriages have ended in divorce. He married Canadian Andrea Bertolli in 1975. They met as students in a drama class in London. They had a son, Simon Collins, who later became a singer and drummer. Collins adopted Bertolli's daughter Jolie Collins, a Canadian actress. Collins met his second wife, Jill Tavelman, in 1980. They were married from 1984 to 1996. They had one daughter, Lily Collins, born in 1989. Collins married his third wife, Oriane Survey, in 1999. They have 2 sons, Nicholas and Matthew. They bought Sir Jackie Stewart's former house located in Begnins, Switzerland, overlooking Lake Geneva. Announcing their separation on March 16, 2006, they were divorced on August 17, 2008. Collins has said he will continue to live in Switzerland to be near the children. He is currently residing in Far Copyright Kai, while also maintaining homes in New York City and Dissingham, Norfolk. Collins stated in 2010 that he had no intention of marrying again. Fortune. Collins was estimated to have a fortune of £115 million in the Sunday Times Rich list of 2011, making him one of the 20 wealthiest people in the British music industry. In 2012, Collins was estimated to be the second wealthiest drummer in the world, beaten to first place by Ringo Starr. Court case. On March 29, 2000, Phil Collins launched a case against two former musicians from his band to recoup £500,000 in royalties that were overpaid. Louis Satterfield, 62, and Ramley Davis, 51, claimed their contract entitled them to 0.5% of the royalties from Serious Hits. Live. A live album recorded during Collins's Seriously, Live World Tour in 1990. Their claim was they were an integral part of the whole album, but Collins responded the two should only receive royalties from the 5 tracks in which they were involved. Instead of asking for a return of what Collins considered overpayment, he sought to recoup the funds by withholding future royalties to Satterfield and Davis, which amounted to less than an annual sum of £12,500 each. On April 19, 2000, the High Court ruled that the two musicians would receive no more royalty money from Phil Collins. The amount that Collins was seeking was halved, and Satterfield and Davis would not have to repay any of it. The judge agreed with Collins's argument that Satterfield and Davis should have been paid for only the 5 tracks on which they performed, including the hit Sussudio. Health problems. Collins reportedly lost hearing in his left ear in 2000 due to a viral infection. In September 2009, it was reported that Collins could no longer play drums, due to a recent operation to repair dislocated vertebrae in his neck. A statement from Collins on the Genesis band website said, "There isn't any drama regarding my disability and playing drums. Somehow during the last Genesis tour I dislocated some vertebrae in my upper neck and that affected my hands. After a successful operation on my neck, my hands still can't function normally. Maybe in a year or so it will change, but for now it is impossible for me to play drums or piano. I am not in any distressed state. Stuff happens in life." However, in 2010 Collins alluded to feelings of depression and low self-esteem in recent years, claiming in an interview that he had been tempted to end his life but resisted for the sake of his children. Honorary degrees. Collins has received several honorary doctorates in recognition of his work in music and also for his personal interests. In 1987, he received an honorary doctorate of fine arts at Fairleigh Dickinson University. In 1991, he received an honorary doctorate of music at the Berklee College of Music. Then on May 12, 2012, he received an honorary doctorate of history at McMurry University in Abilene, Texas, for his research and collection of Texas Revolution artifacts and documents. Politics. Collins has often been mentioned erroneously in the British media as being a supporter of the Conservative Party and an opponent of the Labour Party. This derives from the famous article in The Sun, printed on the day of the 1992 UK general election, titled "If Kinnock wins today, will the last person to leave Britain please turn out the lights?" which stated that Collins was among several celebrities who were planning to leave Britain in the event of a Labour victory. Collins is sometimes reported in the British press to have left the UK and moved to Switzerland in protest at the Labour Party's victory in the 1997 general election. Shortly before the 2005 election, Labour supporter Noel Gallagher was quoted, "Vote Labour. If you don't and the Tories get in, Phil Collins is threatening to come back and live here. And let's face it, none of us want that." However, Collins has since stated that although he did once claim many years earlier that he might leave Britain if most of his income was taken in tax, which was Labour Party policy at the time for top earners, he has never been a Conservative Party supporter and he left Britain for Switzerland in 1994 purely because he started a relationship with a woman who lived there. He said of Gallagher, "I'd own a Euro unregistered trademark TK if he likes my music or not. I do care if he starts telling people he a Euro unregistered trademark MA wanker because of my politics. Eat a Euro unregistered trademark S an opinion based on an old misunderstood quote." Despite his statement that he did not leave Britain for tax purposes, Collins was one of several super-rich figures living in tax havens who were singled out for criticism in a report by the charity Christian Aid in 2008. The Independent included Collins as one of their 10 celebrity tax exiles, erroneously repeating that he had left the country when Labour won the 1997 general election and that he threatened to return if the Conservatives won in 2005. Referring to the 1997 general election in his article Famous Men and Their Misunderstood Politics for MSN, Hugh Wilson stated, "Labour won it in a landslide, which just goes to show the influence pop stars really wield," and claimed, "It lead sick to accusations of hypocrisy." Collins is the singer who bemoaned the plight of the homeless in the song Another Day in Paradise, After All. Wilson also noted, "It also made him an easy target when future elections come round." Questioned about his politics by Mark Lawson in an interview broadcast in 2009, Collins said, "My father was conservative but it wasn't quite the same, I don't think, when he was alive. Politics never loomed large in our family anyway. I think the politics of the country were very different then." The Paul Heaton and Jackie Abbott song, When I Get Back to Blighty, from their 2014 album What Have We Become, includes the lyric "Everyone around us agrees that Phil Collins must die." A prisoner to his tax returns. Activism. Collins was appointed a Lieutenant of the Royal Victorian Order in 1994 in recognition of his work on behalf of the Prince's Trust. Collins has stated he is a supporter of animal rights and people for the ethical treatment of animals. In 2005, he donated autographed drumsticks in support of PETA's campaign against Kentucky Fried Chicken. Collins also has a long-standing interest in the Alamo. He has collected hundreds of artifacts related to the famous 1836 battle in San Antonio, Texas, narrated a light and sound show about the Alamo, and spoken at related events. His passion for the Battle of the Alamo has also led him to write the book The Alamo and Beyond, A Collector's Journey, ISBN 978-1-93-333750-0, published in 2012. A short film is due to be released in 2013 called Phil Collins and the Wild Frontier, which captures Collins on a book tour in June 2012. On June 26, 2014, a press conference was held from the Alamo, where Collins spoke, announcing that he was donating his entire collection to the Alamo via the state of Texas. In February 2000, Collins and his third wife Orianne founded the Little Dreams Foundation, a non-profit organization which aims to realize the dreams of children in the fields of sports and art by providing future prodigies aged 4 to 16 years with financial, material, and mentoring support with the help of experts in various fields. Collins was inspired to found Little Dreams after receiving letters from children asking him how they could break into the music industry. Mentors to the students who have benefited from Little Dreams have included singers Tina Turner and Natalie Cole. In 2013, Collins visited Miami Beach, Florida, to promote the expansion of Little Dreams. Collins supports the South African charity the Topsy Foundation, which provides relief services to some of South Africa's most under-resourced rural communities through a multifaceted approach to the consequences of HIV and AIDS and extreme poverty. He donates all royalties earned in South Africa to the organization. Discography: Flaming Youth, Brand X Genesis. Solo. Filmography: Buster, see also, Discography, Awards and Nominations, Touring and Studio Musicians of Phil Collins, Notes. References: Genesis Biography. Billboard. Retrieved January 16, 2006. Phil Collins Chart History. Billboard. Retrieved January 13, 2006. Bronson, Frederick. The Billboard Book of Number 1 Hits. Billboard Books, New York, 1998. PA 624. ISBN 0-8230-7641-5, Giametti, Mario. Phil Collins The Singing Drummer. Edizioni Segno. Tivonico 2005. ISBN 88-7282-836-8, gigging-drum-charts.com. Phil Collins of Genesis. SBI. Retrieved November 14, 2008. Hewitt, Alon. From Opening the Music Box, A Genesis Chronicle. excerpted on www.philcollins.co.uk. Archived from the original on January 10, 2006. Retrieved January 14, 2006. Rosen, Craig. The Billboard Book of No. 1 Albums. Billboard Books, New York, 1996. ISBN 0-8230-7586-9, Russell, Paul. Phil Collins Biography philcollins.co.uk. Archived from the original on January 4, 2006. Retrieved January 9, 2006. Thompson, Dave. Turn It On Again, Peter Gabriel, Phil Collins, and Genesis. Backbeat Books. San Francisco. 2004. ISBN 0-87930-810-9, external links. Official website, Phil Collins at Atlantic Records, Genesis official website, Little Dreams Foundation, project of Phil Collins and his former wife Orianne, supporting young musicians, Phil Collins at the Internet Movie Database, Tarzan at the Internet Broadway Database.